You spoke about Edom and Paras fighting against each other, but you also mentioned Yechezkel. Yechezkel speaks about Gog and after that Paras would be united with those from the land of Edom,
Right.
who in essence is also from Edom.
That's right.
So what I didn't understand is it seems that they're supposed to be united fighting on the same team.
That's an excellent question. The question basically goes like this. If you read the prophets, and if you read what the rabbis tell us in the Gemara and the Zohar, you may find what appears to be certain contradictions or certain things that are very vague, unclear. And I admit, and I will agree, that not everything is clear. Some things are vague. But what do we do with your question, for example, that says that on the one hand, the Persians, the Iranians, the Arabs will fight the Romans, or there will be certain conflicts, and then it says that they will join against Israel. What do we do with that? The only explanation I have is as follows. Remember that the last and final battle of all battles, what some would like to call the mother of all battles, will be Gog and Magog going against Israel. That is the last one. There's nothing after that. And there is a discussion amongst the rabbis as to when does that exactly happen, before Mashiach or after Mashiach? Because it's not clear from the prophecies if Mashiach has already arrived and then they get mad and they come, or they come and then Mashiach of course beats them. It's not clear, but the consensus is that it's just about the same time, that they will come right about when Mashiach has arrived, whether it's a little before or a little after. In any event, most of the major things like rebuilding the Bet HaMikdash will occur after that war. Therefore, now that we know that it is the last event of all events, you can figure that either 4, 5, or 10 years before that, you will have a conflict between Iran and the world. In other words, it could be that this will occur several years before, it could be maybe 2 or 3 years before. All we do know is that when it comes to Israel, all of a sudden all enemies become friends. In other words, if it comes to attacking Israel, all the Arabs will join together, even though they don't like each other. And the same will be with many of these countries, especially Iran, that may be a source of trouble. In the very, very end, they will come out against Israel. Remember what I said in the very beginning, all of this happens in stages. There's even a tradition that Chiyat HaMetim will last 40 years. 40 years. And it will only be completed 40 years after Mashiach has already come, will the Chiyat HaMetim be complete. So we're talking about many years in between. So therefore, if the war with Iran does not happen, it doesn't mean anything. Why? Because it's not written in the prophecy. It's mentioned in the Zohar, it's mentioned in the Gemara, and it could be that there will be a battle, and it could be that it's allegoric, and it could be who knows what.
It could be an ideological war.
Yeah, there are all sorts of explanations. All we know is all we have to follow is what the prophets say. And even what the prophets say, Maimonides, Rambam says, we cannot understand it clearly, and we will only know when things begin to happen, as they're happening, what the prophets meant. So we have, as I said in the very beginning, we have certain tarchishim, we have certain scenarios that we know will occur, but we don't know all the details. We do know, for example, that it appears to be that Iran, because of the extremists, because of the Hezbollah, because of what they've done in Buenos Aires, and because of what they've done, or what they've attempted to do in Manhattan with the Twin Towers, that they're capable of causing a lot of havoc in the world. So I am personally expecting them to be a source of trouble very, very soon. And Gog and Magog, I'm not worried about, because it's many, many more important things will happen before that.
Yeah. Question to one. Question. What is the point of Imminent?
Chiyat HaMetim?
Yeah. All these will come back to life, and secondly, will come back to life?
No, only those that deserve to rise. Even Goyim will rise.
Or the ones that deserve that?
Yeah, those who kept the 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach.
What is the point of rising to life when they rise
To live to the world to come, for Olam Haba. Because anybody who was a righteous person during his life, or if he was a Goy and kept the 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach, because God commanded so, yesh lo chelek l'Olam Haba. He has a share to the world to come. The next following world. So as I said before, this is not the end. The world will not end, but the world will end as we know it. But there will be a new world. And that is what they're saying today. You have to give Mr. Bush credit of a new world order.
What about the people who are alive now?
What?
What happens to people who are alive today?
The people who are alive today with Chiyat HaMetim happens, we have a tradition that they will die momentarily. for an hour or so, just so they can go through the process of being revived as well, of rising. But you don't have to worry about that. That's something that we still. I mean, that will be at a later stage. Yes.
What history we've seen that great rabbis misdiagnosed or recognized their own person as Messiah?
Okay, that's another good question. In the past, people misidentified who they thought may be the Messiah. Even the Christians are basically doing that by attributing the fact that this one individual they say is the Messiah. The reason why we don't accept, or we haven't accepted anybody in the past as being the Mashiach, is because he hasn't proven it. You have to prove it. Just like what I said before, Moshe proved it, he convinced. Mashiach will have to prove it. We have a list of what things he has to perform to convince that he is the Mashiach. One of those things, by the way, is bringing everybody back home, rebuilding the Beit HaMikdash, and there will be no more war in the world after he comes. That has not happened yet. So therefore, if one of those things is performed by the Mashiach, and he's a righteous Jew, following the Torah and not rebelling against it, then he could have a hazakah that he's a Mashiach, but he's not a Mashiach Badai until he has performed everything. So once he does everything, then we will know it's a Mashiach Badai.
So we actually consider the latest rabbi generation misidentified the Messiah.
Right, because Rabbi Akiva was very much looking forward. His emunah was, remember, he's living about a little over 100 years after the Churban Bayit, and he knew that if Am Yisrael has a zechut, Mashiach can come right then and there. And he saw in Bar Kochva all the qualities of the Mashiach. So he did not make a mistake. Remember, he's looking at the time frame. His emunah is very strong. There's a reason why I'm saying his emunah is very strong. He was a big optimist, and he was always thinking about this. And the time was right, he said, perhaps. And then he sees an individual with the qualities of the Mashiach. Throughout history, there have been great individuals who had the qualities, but the generation did not merit it. In that particular case, it was not only the generation, but it turned out to be that there was something in Bar Kochva that Rabbi Akiva did not know. That had he known about it, he would not have said that this is the Mashiach. So he was basically, he wasn't fooled, but he did not know everything there was to know. Again, he didn't think he would be the Mashiach. He just saw him as an individual who has all the qualities of being a leader and of being able to bring about the redemption. But again, for various reasons, Hashem had other plans. What?
You said that you didn't see what the Rabbi Akiva.
There were certain things that Rabbi Akiva did not observe.
I've heard the talk about was also called Bar
Kochva because of that. It was a false one. Yeah. But he really was a good man. Not except for a few weaknesses, of course, that made him not qualified. In any event, it wasn't the right time. Hiskiyahu Melech could have been also the Mashiach. He was qualified. Just that the generation wasn't ready.
You said you have a list of how to recognize Mashiach. The rabbis have a list.
There's a list of what they would ask, how they would be convinced. Is that what you're talking about?
Right. So who makes this list? All the great rabbis?
No, it's mentioned. It's mentioned. We have a tradition of what the Mashiach has to accomplish and what he has to do to convince us and the world. Remember, we're very stubborn people. We just don't believe anybody.
You could have someone like Christ that could do it.
But he didn't. Right, but he didn't do it. See, that's the problem. We don't care who he is. I don't care. We have no problem with who the Mashiach is, as long as he does not rebel against Judaism, as long as he supports the Torah. In other words, he's Jewish, right? He comes to uphold it, not to destroy it, and he basically does what he's expected to do. And that is the gathering of the diaspora, rebuild the temple, after which there will be peace on earth. None of that has ever happened. Nobody has ever come and done that. Now, this is besides. All of this that I'm telling you is besides that he has to prove that he's a prophet. Because the Mashiach is a prophet. And you know how a prophet proves himself? He has to make a prediction in the future, a positive prediction, not a negative one. And that positive prediction has to come true. If it does not come true, then he's a false prophet. Nobody can really make a long-term prediction unless he has true prophecy, an accurate one with all the details, right? And if he makes such a prophecy, and if prophecy comes true, then you can begin to believe him. But we still don't know, as I mentioned before, we still don't know for sure if he is until he accomplishes everything there is. But Once he begins to do what he does, then he has a hazakah. Hazakah means the possibility, the qualification of being the Mashiach. Whether it turns out to be that he's the one or not, only time will tell if he accomplishes what he's supposed to accomplish. So nobody has yet done that. And let me tell you something else. I could have told you that anybody in the past who came and said that he was a Mashiach was a faker, just for the fact that many of the things that have to happen before Mashiach did not happen. Now somebody will counter that and say, well, not all of this has to happen if you would come by Ahishena. Ahishena means if Hashem would accelerate the time, then a lot of this wouldn't have to happen. A lot of the wars in the conflicts, World War I, World War II, the 4 Arab-Israeli wars, would not have to happen if Hashem would have brought it by Ahishena. So it's true that not all of this have to happen, but there are certain things that have to happen, and they have not. They would have been otot bashamayim. There has to be certain signs in heaven. There has to be certain phenomena that has to occur. Right, there has to be certain things that have to happen that you know that if you're sensitive and you pay attention, that Mashiach is around the corner. The rabbis, for example, tells in the Gemara that there will be a time that things will be so obvious that everybody will be talking about it. 200 years ago, very few people were talking about Mashiach. Today, the generation, just about everybody, not only Chabad, everybody's talking about it. Whoever is a little bit aware that he's about to come, maybe another year, maybe another 2 years. So the more talking, the more awareness, the closer we know that he's coming. That did not exist years ago. And it was very suspicious if somebody claimed he would be the Mashiach. He would have to prove it. Very, very much prove it. Today, he still has to prove it, but it would be easier to put the two together. If somebody would arrive today with some qualifications, and we're living in this era, and we're seeing all of this happen, it would make a lot more sense today than it did 100 years ago. Yeah.
Rabbi, many Jews were claiming not long ago that Rabbi Lubavitch was...
The Lubavitch Rebbe?
Right.
Yeah. He had all the qualifications, the Rabbi of Lubavitch. But he wasn't the one, apparently. Right?
How they came up to the conclusion?
Who?
On what basis?
He's a righteous man. He has done so much for the Jewish people. He has brought out a certain awareness. He was a tzaddik. He was accepted by many, many people. He was a Talmid Chacham, very knowledgeable in the Torah. He was saintly. I mean, these are all qualifications. All he had to do was, come out and openly and accomplish. But apparently he himself said he's not.
So what about rebuilding of Jerusalem? That's a key thing.
Right, that is happening as we were speaking. It's being rebuilt, right? What? The city is being rebuilt.
Yeah, weren't you talking about the actual temple being rebuilt?
No, the temple is the last. Is after everything is finished. That's after all the wars. After most of the Jews will be in Israel when the temple will be rebuilt. Not everybody, but most of them will be there.
So you were talking about the outskirts of the city of Jerusalem.
Right. Oh, the city will grow even more. That's after Mashiach. After Mashiach, we still have a certain amount of time that will remain up until the year 6000. That's called Yemot HaMashiach. It's a different period, a period of peace and quiet, where the Jewish glory will be restored, the temple will be rebuilt, and however number of years remain from the time of Mashiach until the year 6000, those years will be called Yemot HaMashiach. It will be a beautiful time to live in. Yes.
You didn't mention Ikvasa HaMashiach, which is the Rebbe Elyahu Kin wrote about. Ikvasa.
I didn't mention the term because there were so many terms.
Does that fit in with?
Yes.
Is that over now?
No, we're in the middle of it. Ikvasa HaMashiach is another term used to describe Acharit HaYamim, the end of days. It means on the hill of Mashiach, right before he comes. Right before could be 25 years, could be 50 years. It's not 300, 400 years.
Synonymous with Bachli.
Yeah. I would say Ikvasa HaMashiach begins at the turn of this century. Pretty much beginning with World War I. Yeah.
During this period before the chaos of AC,
right.
Are people going to be born and die?
People will continue to die.
Are there going to be new souls brought into the world?
No more new souls. All the souls that have to come down will come down by Techiyat HaMetim. At that point, no new souls will come down.
I'm talking about the early stages.
Yes, there are very few new souls coming down today, but there are some new souls. Most of them are reincarnations. People who have been there in the past and who are coming back for a tikkun. No, you see, what you're asking is a good question because it fits into another question. And that is as follows. We have a tradition that all the tikkunim of the Gilgulim have to occur before Mashiach comes, as much as possible. In other words, all the reincarnations have to be complete. So what happens if it's not? So what Hashem will do is bring about the tikkun in another way. the Holocaust, according to the many Kabbalists, came about, for many reasons it came about, but one reason is because there is no more time for all the Gilgulim to come down. So Hashem took care of that in another way, in another tikkun, through the Holocaust. The Holocaust was a furnace, a fire, that was an atonement for the Jewish people, because there's no more time left. The shop is closing up, the diaspora is finished. All the millions of Jews that were in Europe before World War II are either gone, or in Israel, or on their way to Israel. So it's like Hashem is closing up the shop. That is what's happening. That is what the Holocaust brought about. Remember, it's not a coincidence. It cannot be a coincidence that after losing 6 million Jews, all of a sudden we're back in Israel after over 1900 years, that we didn't have the land, that we were not established there. So the fact that this comes on the heels of the Holocaust is definitely connected. It has to be.
Specifically, it says that God and already happened, are waiting for good things to happen,
Right.
and all that. And source is already past us, and God already passed us, so specifically that believes that term.
Right.
That leader just died this way. And he said himself that God was calling God and not that's
Right, there's an opinion that a lot of the troubles are behind us. That World War II was the most significant labor pain of all the labor pains that we're expected to have. I hope that's true. But if you follow the prophecies, you know that there's going to be at least, if there's not going to be any more labor pains as powerful as World War II, there's going to be at least frightening moments, which are just as bad. Because according, there are two prophecies, one in Zechariah and one in Yechezkel, on how the war of Gog will look like. I didn't speak about that because that's a whole subject. And so, what the war of Gog and Magog will look like. According to one prophecy, it's terrible destruction in Israel. I mean, even though the war will be won and the enemy will be destroyed, which is of course the end of the war, what will happen in the meantime? World War I, World War II, 4 Arab-Israeli wars, a conflict in Lebanon, and other terrorist acts after that, and problems elsewhere. No, so therefore, there will 100% be a war of Gog and Magog. The only question is, how will the Jews fare in all of this? That is the big question. So their opinion says the worst is behind us. I assure you that even though we may not suffer, there may not be too many casualties, hopefully, there will be a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. People will be scared to death. It will be a very terrible time to live in during the final onslaught of Gog and Magog. But even before Gog and Magog, we still have a few more events that have yet to happen. They will be just as frightening. But they will be not in Israel, they will be all over the world. Right, so that's right. It all depends on the level of teshuvah that the Jewish people will show. The more Jews that will do teshuvah, the less pain and suffering. And if that does not happen, it will be very frightening. And I hope, of course, that most of it, not all of it, is behind us, but it doesn't look like it. It looks like some of it will still happen. But those who are righteous, and there are several segulot, several mitzvot that you can do, that will give you a better chance of surviving it. And one of it is being kind to others. Milut chasadim, being kind, being charitable to others is a big segula, powerful segula of being spared from the tribulations of Gog and Magog. Yeah.
I've heard that the era of Moshiach has to last 200 years, and that's not including Kliyat Mekim, which lasts for 40 years. If you add that up, 200 plus 240 years, subtract that from the year 6,000, because that's when everything's supposed to end.
Right.
And you get 57.
Right, we have 241, and soon it's going to be 240 years left, as of Rosh Hashanah.
Like Rosh Hashanah,
As of 5760, it's 200. The clock is running, and it's 240 years left, and the countdown. I call it the countdown has begun. I'd like to say the countdown has begun in 1914, World War I, or 1939, World War II. But apparently, those were events that are tied to Mashiach. But the major ones are going to begin with the countdown as of 1990, which is the year 5750, which corresponds to Chatzot, or midday of Friday. 6,000 years are divided into 6 days of the week, as we have a tradition, and the year 5750 is midday on Friday. After midday on Friday, what does everybody do? Get ready for Shabbat. So we've passed that point. That is when the gates of the Soviet Union opened up, mass immigration to Israel, collapse of the Soviet Union, collapse of Eastern Europe, Gulf War, and many other things are happening now. So 5750 was a major turning point, and so I consider that a countdown. But as I said in the very, very beginning, remember, all of this is happening in stages, and it will last for 3 generations. When do we start counting the generations? I don't know, but I hope and I pray that we're in the third and last generation. B'ezrat Hashem. Yes?
Recently just said the year coming according to Chida, the significant year.
According to the Chida, no, not according to the Chida, according to his great-grandfather of the Chida, Chesed Abraham, the year 5760 is a very special year. And as I said in the beginning, there are many propitious times, very propitious years, special moments that the Mashiach mesugal litgalot lahem. So I hope he comes this year. But if not, Chas v'shalom, what it will mean is that several things will occur in that year that will bring us one step closer. So if he doesn't come, and I hope he does, but if he doesn't, I can assure you that from what we know, several things will occur during that year. It's a very significant year. It's a propitious year. And that's what he meant. What? That's not part of our tradition. Yeah, but that's not part of our tradition. We had women who were prophets, and we had even one that was like a judge, the Torah, right? But the Goel, the final redeemer, is a man. From all that we know, it has to be one of the two, right? It can't be both, and it's always been so. In the case of the Kulat Mitzrayim, we had Moshe Rabbeinu, we had Aaron as the two leaders, and we had the women in another active role, like Miriam, right, the sister of Moshe. They basically led the women. So, but as a leader for the entire Jewish nation, our tradition is that it's going to be a man. But what difference does it make? In the end, it makes no difference what he is and who he is. We're just waiting for him to come. It makes that's why I don't get into details of who is it. Is it this Rebbe or that rabbi?
He might not even be in the human form.
Well, we don't know. He has to be a human being. Not only is he a human being, according to another tradition, he's living amongst us in Chutz La'aretz. He's somewhere outside of Israel, but based on the latest rumors, he's already arrived. He already made Aliyah. He's already in Israel. Yeah. According to the latest rumor, or I don't know what you would call it. It's not a rumor. It's what certain Mekubalim are saying, that they feel or that they are aware that the Mashiach is around. Because remember, we have another tradition. See, we have all these traditions. Another tradition that every generation has a Mashiach, a leader that can be the Mashiach. So we definitely have somebody today. And right now he's in Israel. Yes.
Why should you tell us about the red heifer?
Red heifer. See, I would have had another page just for the red heifer. The red heifer, there will be a red heifer. There have been 9 red heifers up until now that were used, as you know, for the ashes to cleanse those who are impure. The 10th heifer will be used by the Mashiach. As soon as, of course, we have the 10th heifer, it is a signal that Mashiach is around the corner, because you don't. Right, but because you don't have one every day. But it has to be a kosher red heifer. In other words, it can't have any blemishes. So it's very exciting when we do see one. But whether that materializes into anything, time will tell. But there is definitely gonna be one around the time Mashiach appears. There has to be one, right?
What that was cited in Israel.
Right. I'm not sure. I'm not really sure. Yeah. But there will be one. There will be one ready when Mashiach comes. How old the Mashiach is? No, we don't. No, we don't know. I mean, we don't know what it looks like.
No, not what it looks like, but do we know how old he would be when he comes?
No, we don't know. We don't know. But I think he will be an older person, probably. But that's just based on certain things that are written down. But we don't know details of who he is. Even in his name, there are several opinions in the Gemara what his name will be. Whether it's Menachem, whether it's Shiloh, Yinon, right? There are several names that Mashiach has. Nehemiah, all of these are names of the Mashiach. And according to another tradition, he's born in the month of Av, the month that the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed. So whether that will turn out to be true or not, we don't know, because it could be allegoric, as I said before. So there's very little information that we have as to details. We have an idea, we have a picture of what to expect. We know it's going to be very rough, the road ahead, leading to Mashiach. And we have to hold on tight. It's going to be very rough. And right now it's the quiet before the storm, because it has been quiet since World War II. Unless you were drafted into Korea and Vietnam, or unless you were in the Israeli army, it's been pretty calm relatively. And before you know it, it's all going to burst. Armilius is the leader of Go. Right? It's an assembly of nations, and they have a leader. That's the name that the rabbis have said. Whether that will be his real name or not, we don't know. Yeah, that was always been the question that many people ask. What will the United States also attack Israel? And my answer is probably yes. The reason is because, as Mr. de Gaulle said, French President, de Gaulle, nations don't have friends, they have interests. So America is not our friend, even though they say they are. In the end, they will do what they did now, and that is make a stupid war against Yugoslavia. They will also make a stupid war against Israel. And that's what the prophet says. Cheskel says that God will have no reason to go after Israel. Hashem will put it into his head. And if it's all the nations that Hashem has to take revenge from, if one of them is the United States for some reason, it will be part of that club too. So even though they've helped, even though they've been allies and so forth, in the end, I wouldn't trust them. There will be righteous going. There are righteous Gentiles. What? Yes, there will be some who will side and some who will not side. But the majority of them will not side. There will be, remember I said before, 1/3 of the world will survive. 2/3 will disappear.
And that includes the Jews also.
I think that includes the Jews too. So therefore, you will have unfortunately what happened in Egypt. A lot of Jews will not make it. Right. So the same thing with the coming redemption. Not everybody will make it. And of course, it is up to every individual who wants to make it to do the right thing. And there are several, as I said before, there are several segulot, several mitzvot that are powerful to save one from the tribulations of Mashiach. One of them, the most important one, is being charitable, being kind. Those who are charitable and kind to others will hopefully be spared of the tribulation. Some rabbis in the time of the Gemara said they don't want to be around when this happens. It will be a very difficult time because even if you are saved, it will be scary. It will be painful to see your friends, your neighbors. So there will be a lot of fear. And this fear, I don't know if it will happen slowly or if it will happen at once, but don't be surprised if you hear some major event in the very near future, because it's overdue. It's already time. So many years have already gone by that we're expecting something to happen very soon.
Do you think the Shiva movement that we've been seeing is the period of Elyahu Kin?
Yeah, some are saying that the fact that we have so many Baalei Teshuvah is indicative that the spirit of Elyahu Navi is around.
So do you think that possibly the Baruch Rebbe could have been Elyahu Kin since he was so instrumental in this movement?
That's a very difficult question to answer because all we do know is that there will be people in all generations who will be instrumental in bringing about. Hashem has put in every generation tzaddikim that will be instrumental in bringing back the Jewish people, the Tshuva, and as protectors of the generation. So therefore, all of these great rabbis...
Players like the Mashiach, how are we going to know who Elyahu was and who Mashiach ben Yosef was? I know we'll know who Mashiach ben David was.
Yeah. In the beginning, you may not know. We have an opinion in the Gemara. It's not actually not an opinion. It's a statement that in the beginning people will not accept the Mashiach. And this is even Mashiach ben David. They will not be sure that he is or they'll be leftists from Meretz, from the leftist parties who won't want to hear about it. Whatever the reasons are, you will have people who will fight against him, who will not accept him. And in the beginning it may not be obvious, but believe it or not, I think those of us who are here will have a strong feeling that he is the right man that we've been looking and waiting for so many years. But he will still have to prove it. And he will still have to convince not only us, but the rest of the world.